And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Northwest Connections with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Northwest Connections. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. Life has always been full of surprises and uncertainty. Acknowledging the reality of our current world is key to learning how to navigate it. Stop attempting to impose order and perfection on a life that is inherently imperfect. On today's Northwest Connection, we rejoin the conversation with Crystal McKinnon.
So after court was finished that day, we went outside and he said, I'll be really honest with you. I thought you were exaggerating to scare me away, or I thought you were exaggerating your life. And if anything, you've under exaggerated. If I can make your life any easier than what it is, then I'm willing to do that for you. And it's been almost 12 years that I've been with Darren now. But things, of course, would get worse before they got better, right? Because I just thought, that's just me. Of course, if it's going to happen to anybody, it's going to happen to me, or it's going to happen to my son. Well, not long after I met Darren, my son started to experience something called dystonic storms. Something extremely rare. They kept saying they didn't know what it caused. Dystonic storms, if you were to watch somebody in a dystonic storm, they look like they're having a seizure and a heart attack, but are conscious. It's like having a full body Charlie horse. The shortest episode he had is 12 hours. The longest episode he had was 21 days. Those were the days that I would pray to God to just take us both. These were the days that Darren and I had to be with him 24/7. We would have to take shifts to be with him. He would self-harm. He would punch the railings on his bed. He would scratch himself. He has actually literally bit off the entire bottom lip before. So within a few months of having dystonic storms, he got 110% curve in his spine of scoliosis. And they told me, if we don't do surgery on your son, he'll most likely pass away. So we need to put rods into his spine. So we do. In a 12-hour surgery, they correct my son's back.
Yeah.
But what you'll see here is me holding a screw there. That's because 6 months later, we had to take all that hardware out because he got infected. So he was on antibiotics. He was on PICC lines. He became resistant to 3 different types of antibiotics. They said they have to take everything out, even the baclofen pump. So they took out hardware from his hips, his legs, his feet, his spine. And we were going to do the baclofen pump last because we knew that that was going to change his quality of life. So we do. But before we do, they tell us we're going to send you home first. In the event that he does pass away, he gets to see his friends and family first. This might be the day we were sent home or the day after. But as you can see, I'm holding my son's head, and I'm not holding his head because I'm like, oh, look at us. I'm actually holding his head because he couldn't turn it that way. And in those moments, we didn't quite know why. But going back to that baclofen pump he had, that baclofen pump had to be refilled every 4 weeks. So for every 4th Monday for 5 years, I'd fly to Vancouver to refill that pump for him. Every time that pump got filled, he was at risk of having meningitis for 72 hours. What we didn't realize in this picture is he already had the early signs of bacterial meningitis. That infection in his spine shot right up that catheter and went into his brain. But because his spine was fused from having scoliosis surgery, they were like, we can't really test it because his spine is fused. So they fly us back to Prince George. And I think the next day after we got home, I was calling 911. That's us waiting for the medevac. I can't tell you how many times we've been in the medevac. It's uncountable times. I don't even have first aid. When they told me we can't check his spinal fluid because the spine is fused, I was the one that said, can't you aspirate his baclofen pump? I was the one. And they were like, oh my God, we can. So they bring him to x-ray, they aspirate the baclofen pump, and pink murky fluid comes out. Of course, it should have been clear.
Northwest Connections will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Northwest Connections with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. Medical evacuation refers to swift and specialized transportation of critically ill or injured patients using equipped aircraft or helicopters for medical facilities, typically for emergency situations or long-distance transfers. These flights operate as flying intensive care units and are manned by specialized medical staff, including flight nurses and paramedics. Let us return to the conversation as Crystal shares her decision to catch the next flight.
This is a picture of before they get on the medevac. Because Darren worked for himself, he didn't have medical insurance, so I sent him on the medevac with Buck while I was waiting for the next flight. But I wouldn't realize until they left that the next 3 flights were booked. So by the time I get there, thankfully I made it there before he went in for surgery because they pretty much told us they didn't think he was going to survive. This is him in ICU in complete withdrawal from the baclofen pump. And he comes out of it, and he actually does pretty good. Until one day, I had family in town, and the nurses says, you know what, you guys are here all the time. Why don't you guys go out and go spend time with your family? And when we left, she put the bed railing down, half of the bed railing, so that he could see us in the window and we could wave. She forgot to put that bed railing back up. That's his broken, fused back. He fell 4 feet onto a concrete floor. The crazy part is, why did it take an hour and a half to call me, was because he fell out of bed during staff switchover.
What?
So when he fell, the opposite side of where his door was, when the nurse came in to check on him, he just wasn't there. So she thought maybe he was at rec group. Maybe he was in the library. Maybe he was... Until all of a sudden they were like, how come nobody knows where Buck is? This is when they finally go and look on the other side of the bed, and there he's laying there. We arrived there before the ambulance did. So he was in a recovery center, Sunny Hill Health Center. This is him in the ambulance on the way to the hospital after breaking his back. The reason why I share that is he's smiling. Some of us can't even fake smile. We're so miserable in our own self, right? In nervous system regulation, I'll say to people, like, smile, like, do your biggest smile and look at your neighbor and show them how still you look. And the amount of people who don't want to, because we sit in an unregulated nervous system. Sometimes I think he smiled to, like, save me. But this is how miraculous he is, and that's why I now believe in the power of prayer. Is I had kept saying, when all of this started unfolding, I just want him to graduate. Like, I just, like, buy me 6 months. Please just, like, Band-Aid this, do this. So we spent something like 190 some days in the hospital consecutively. What you can't see here is he actually has a broken back in this photo. He is an outpatient with a PICC line. And look how happy he is to be graduating. Still one of the best days of my life right there. So in January 2020, we went back to Children's Hospital and they re-put rods into his spine. And we came home literally days before the pandemic happened. So when the pandemic happened, we felt like we were on holidays. We were like, what? We just get to stay home and do nothing? We haven't been home in like forever. We really enjoyed the pandemic. Darren and I lost 60 pounds between the two of us over the pandemic. And we just really liked it. Here was the thing, is that Buck was so used to having staff. Because when we were home, we had home support nurses twice a day. So in the pandemic, he got really tired of just me and Darren. And since he was 17, he had been on a wait list for independent living. Not that we ever thought he would live long enough or that he would ever go, but it was suggested we put his name on the list because the wait list was long. So when I got a phone call that there was a bed available if he wanted to take it, I did not think he would. And if he did, I didn't think he would last. Because you got to remember, in the pandemic, the transition didn't look the same. I had to drop stuff off slowly so they could sanitize it. I wasn't allowed in the house. I had to social distance visit the people who live there outside. And that once he did go, I wasn't allowed to see him for 2 weeks because they were going to isolate him. I'd never not been with him for 2 weeks. That was going to be my longest without him. I grieved that whole, right from April to June, moving his stuff. I cried.
Northwest Connections will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Northwest Connections with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Northwest Connections. Creating a life of independence involves taking charge of your own choices and making decisions regarding finances, employment, and relationships. It's about possessing the confidence and skills to live independently, free from burdens. This goal is every adult aspires to. Let us return to the conversation as Crystal shares her son's reaction when he decided to leave home.
I'm so proud of him because I never would have left him. So it needed to be him who left me. What I wouldn't realize, though, by him leaving me is once he left, all of a sudden I was like, well, who am I? If I'm not a 24-hour caregiver, then who am I? Now, I've had lots of jobs. I've supervised visits for children in care. I've worked with Indigenous families in the school district. I've been a youth care worker. I've done in-school suspension. I've worked at the Justice Education Society. I owned a lashing business for 7 years once he aged out of daycare. And when he left, it was so heartbroken. I was so heartbroken that I was ashamed of it. I didn't even want to tell people how heartbroken I was because how selfish was that of me? And people talk about empty nesting all the time, but when you're 24 hours a day, yes, please. Just crying around. I'm okay, thank you. I didn't tell people because I have friends who can't have kids. And I have friends whose children have passed. And I thought, who am I to be crying that my son has left? And I eventually had to stop going because I cry all the way home. I would cry all the way, like it's dangerous to even be crying because I can't even see. I'd go home and I'd just be crying. Then there was part of me that was mad. It was like, I just gave up almost 20 years of my life for you. And then you left me and I can't see you and I can't visit you. Even when I could visit him, we had a social distance visit. I would go and lay in his bed at home so I could try to remember what he smelled like. Thank God. I tried so many things. I tried beer. I tried wine. Thankfully, I'm so scared of drugs ever since I've been with Buck's biological father that I've never done drugs. But then I tried to excessively work out and excessively diet. I would sleep. I didn't realize that I was grieving, which sounds strange. But I was also grieving everything else because Buck was so high needs. I didn't just have time to take a minute and cry about something or to adjust to something. So when people died, it was like just getting over it right away and not dealing with it. In the pandemic, I had no choice but to sit in all of this stuff that's happened. I thank the Creator that one day, there was literally just one day out of the blue, just click. Something clicked in my head. And that was that I was like, Buck is doing really well. And like Darren's doing pretty good too. But like, I'm a mess. So then I realized the same thing was happening for us all, but I was having a very different experience. And why? Well, I'd find out because I was in an unregulated nervous system. I was in survival mode for like 40 years. You wanted to fight? I'm in. To this day, I talk about it in my workshop. We'll talk about our limbic system. I call mine Limby. She's a bitch. You want to argue? She'll argue. She is like the first person to show up in an argument and the last to leave. I didn't realize that she was driving my whole life until I did a course called Reset, Rewire Your Brain, which is what I'll go over in some of my workshop this afternoon. Once I figured out what nervous system was, I was hooked because I was just used to adrenaline and cortisol all the time. I didn't even know I could produce my own serotonin and dopamine. But once I had these drugs I didn't ever really have, I was stuck. And in that, I had saw in one page of this book, it talked about EFT tapping, emotional freedom techniques. And I had said to the lady who hosted this workshop, how come you guys didn't really talk about tapping? And she's like, well, we don't really know. We don't have anybody certified in it.
Northwest Connections will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Northwest Connections with your host, Robert Pictou.
Also known as emotional freedom techniques, tapping is a holistic healing method that combines elements of cognitive behavioral therapy and acupressure. It involves using the fingertips to gently tap on specific meridian points on the head and upper body while focusing on a particular emotional or physical issue. In this final segment of Northwest Connection, Crystal shares what she did until the course started.
So I was like, I don't even know about it. But I had a girlfriend whose husband went missing in the pandemic and presumed to be dead now. She's also a special needs mom. I had messaged her and I said, I see you navigating this thing with Darcy being missing. And I'm just wondering, how are you dealing with this? And she says, I tap all day. And I was like, really? There was something about tapping in this course. I was like, I'm totally sold on this. So I sign up for this course 5 months before it's going to start. And in that 5 months, I was like, well, what am I going to do for the next 5 months? And the lady was like, well, maybe you should start volunteering. And I really, to be really honest, it just rolled off my shoulders. Volunteer. I was so broke. I just spent 4 years in the hospital with my son. Now we're in the pandemic and my business is shut down. But the next day I'm in the vehicle and the radio says, hospice is looking for volunteers. Who better to volunteer at hospice? Although I have not really had anything to do with hospice, I sure know what grief is. So I applied, and right off the bat, after my training, they threw me into 20 weeks of training with other families that I navigated and facilitated their broken hearts or broken circle. I still, to this day, I still am a volunteer there. I volunteer for their Broken Hearts of Fentanyl. But understanding my grief through hospice, getting trained in EFT tapping, I never realized, I never read the book, The Body Keeps Score, but as soon as I started tapping, I realized that my limbic system also has a soft side to it. But once I did that, all of a sudden I started getting reserves messaging me asking if I could offer grief support. And that's where Indigenous Wellness Canada came from. I can tell you that through all of my trauma and my grief, I never had a toolbox. I can also tell you that if my son was in ICU and somebody said, "Oh, Christelle, just tap," I would have been like, "Fuck you," right? You know? Or when you're really mad and somebody says, "Oh, just take a deep breath." There's a time and place for everything. And when you decide that you want to find nervous system regulation in a state where you're not so against it, the things that can flourish, that's why so many people are like, "I don't know what to do with my life," or "I feel so stuck." When you find nervous system regulating, it will change your life. I can tell you that in that time of struggling, I thought, like, I say this in front of lots of people, I was considering selling my house, leaving my business, leaving Darren, and starting all over. I was in flight. If I wasn't in flight, I was in fight. But I was in the pandemics, and then I was kind of in freeze mode. So after doing that, I ended up, you guys know Dr. Gabor. If you don't, he's pretty fantastic the way he speaks about trauma. But my slideshow's a bit backwards. This is just low-level laser therapy. I won't go into it too much. Lots of people call it red light. On my website, we call it red lights. So we fall underneath a crack, so the colleges don't make a big deal out of it. But it's our future of our medicine. Hopefully it will take away from all of our pharmaceutical drugs in the future. It removes inflammation from the body so the body can then heal naturally. But Dr. Gabor was having a course called Compassionate Inquiry. And I didn't meet any of the requirements, actually, that he had asked. I wasn't a doctor. I wasn't a therapist. I wasn't a counselor. And I didn't fall under a college. So I wrote a cover letter to him and told him about my life and told him how I found nervous system regulation and how this has changed my life. And I only told 2 people that I applied in the event of being rejected. And I got accepted into his course. I believe that because I didn't have a background in something else to cloud my mind, I was very good at compassionate inquiry. And before I was even done, they asked me to apply for the mentorship program. And I graduated from that last August. And then I did the suicide attention in December. And now I travel all over the place. Oh, one more thing. He's doing great. That's just us at Christmas. He's doing really well. He's even moved. Like, he was living in that house and then he chose to move to a different house. So he lives his best life now. I like to tease his cousins that still live at home with their parents. And I was like, who would have known Buck was going to be the independent one in the family? These are the organizations I have been supporting. We've been open for almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in the middle of May.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Northwest Connections. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.